Hello, this is Mr. K again. Welcome to part 5, the wheel. Go ahead and open up a new part in Inventor. Please make sure you look at all the measurements so that you know which dimensions go where as you're creating this part. Okay, on this one it's going to be a little difficult. We're going to have to do a lot of revolutions and some patterns on here to be able to get this finished out. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to try to make that cutout shape that you see, and I'm going to do that on the XZ axis so that I'm looking down on top of it. Move it over so I can see it over here. The first thing I want to do is I want to get that outside curve. So I'm going to use a circle tool, and I'm going to draw that outside curve, and I can see that the radius of that is 0.125. That's the radius. We need the diameter, so I'm going to say times 2, which is 0.25. That's pretty easy. And now the rest of it, I'm just going to try to draw it with the line tool close to what it looks like. I'm going to start at the coincidence of the top of the circle where the little arrow is pointing at the red line, and I'm going to draw it out. I want to make sure I'm at 90 degrees as I draw it out. And I just want to kind of draw what does it look like. It doesn't have to be perfect. I want to make sure that my dimensions are at 90 degrees. I'm drawing along this x-axis here because I know that it's halfway in between, because if you look at your measurements. And so there's kind of that shape. The last piece we need to do is I need to draw my center line. And that's going to be the center that this thing revolves around. Right click OK. And so this wheel is going to revolve around this line. So I need to put some dimensions in here now. I'm going to dimension the distance from the center of the circle to that line. And that's going to be 1 inch. I'm going to dimension from the center line here to this inside shoulder, and that's going to be 0.75. I'm going to dimension from the center line here to the inside shoulder, and that's going to be 0.25. And then the last one I need to dimension on my width measurements is going to be that diameter of the revolution, that center hole. If this is going to be the center of that hole, then I need the distance that it would go around. And as you look, that distance is 0.28. So I'm going to dimension the distance from there to that center line, and I'm going to say 0.28, but it's not 0.28. It's going to be 0.28 divided by 2, because I don't need the diameter, I need the radius. Last thing I need to do is I need to check some of my other dimensions here and see if the height here, that height needs to be the same as the circle. So it's going to be 0.25. And then I need to make sure that the vertical constraint, because you see over here my top view is turned sideways, so my vertical constraint here and here are the same place, and it says that they are. So I should be able to, even though it's not all blued out, I should be able to say that that is a complete circle. I mean a complete shape. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my fillets, and this is before I revolve everything. I'm going to take this fillet tool, and I'm going to look on here, and it says my typical fillet is 0.0625. So in here, I'm going to say 0.0625. I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to choose this line and this line, and it created that curve. Now, if I was really good and I chose that center, it'll choose both of those at the same time. But I'm not really good. I like to make sure I know what I'm doing and hit both lines. So there are 4 of them here, 1, 2, 3, 4, and that gives that curved look to the inside of that wheel there. So now I'm going to finish the sketch. Oh, wait, no, before I do that, I need to trim some things. And I'm going to trim the inside of this circle. Now I have my shape that I want it to be. Finish my sketch, move it so I can see what I'm doing. I'm going to do a revolve. I'm going to choose this profile. I'm going to come over here and choose my axis. It's going to be this axis. Spins it around. That's looking pretty good. Okay. All right, now we're going to put those little windows in this inside flat surface here of the wheel. In order to do that, I'm going to create a new sketch on this surface. So I'm going to click on it. It moves it around, and so that I'm facing it. And with all these circles in here, all these different rings that I have, it gets really confusing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit F7 on the keyboard. And when you hit F7, it gets rid of all that. It's like cutting it in half, splitting it down the center. So it's a little easier to see. And what I'm going to do here is as I look at the bottom half of this instructions on the circle, there are a bunch of angles, 15 degrees, 30 degrees. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start drawing some lines so I can get those degrees. What I really want is one window right here that I can then duplicate all the way around. So I'm going to start, and I'm going to go, it doesn't have the green dot for me, so I'm going to go here and I'm going to go 0, 0, X0 and Y0. I'm going to click, and I'm going to give myself a starting point. I want to make sure this line goes outside of my wheel. I can cut it off later, but I want to make sure it goes outside the wheel. That way I'm not connecting it to anything, to any of these extra little marks that are in there. I'm going to create a new one. And I'm going to repeat this, and it's going to be 15 degrees. And so if I want to come outside the wheel, and if I hit tab, it gives me my degree marker here. And I can just type in 15, and it automatically gives me that 15 degrees. And you can see that right here, 15 degrees. I'm going to do it again, take my line tool, and this time I'm going to come out here, and I'm going to hit tab again, and this one, it says that it's 30 degrees, but it's not really 30 degrees. It's 30 degrees from the last line, so it's going to be 30 degrees plus 15. So I could type in 30 plus 15, or I can type in 45, just to let it do the math. And that's where I'm wanting that little window. I don't need to keep going because the rest of them are 30, 30, 30, 30, 30. And so there's where I want it. Now what I've got to do is I've got to create some the curved outside of those little windows. I can do it with a circle, or I can do it with an arc. And in this case, I think I want to do it with an arc. And I'm going to come over here and I'm going to draw my line, and I'm just going to cut it through, and I'm going to draw this. And I know that the outside diameter of that window is going to be 0.625. So I can type in 0.625. And that creates that arc. Now it's not in the right place. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to choose my coincident, which means I'm going to move this point. And if we zoom in, I'm going to move this point, and I want to move it there. And when you do, it moves that curve for you. I'm going to create a second arc. It's below it because it's smaller. I'm going to draw that line, and it doesn't matter as long as I don't get past the center between here and here. As long as I don't get that curve past there, it doesn't matter where I put it. I just need to be able to see that where the center is going to be, that center point there. I'm going to come back and I'm going to choose my constraint. No, I didn't do that right, but I can come back and fix it. I'm going to choose that constraint. I'm going to put it right there. And the last thing I need to do is change that dimension for this one. And that dimension needs to be, it's going to be half, it's a radius of 0.375, 0.375. Click on it, 0.375. And so there's my little window that I need. So what I've done is I've created two arcs. I could have done a complete circle. I've created my two arcs, and now all I need to do is trim away everything that is not that window. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to choose trim, and I'm going to start trimming away everything that is not that window. And if I can trim everything away, it leaves me just the window there. Finish my sketch. I'm going to extrude it. I want to extrude all of it so it all goes away. So it negatively extrudes. So now I have one window, and now I'm going to come up here and I'm going to do a circular pattern. And the circular pattern is going to allow me, I'm going to choose the feature. Now I could come over here and try to grab the correct feature, and it gets, as you can see, everything's moving around, and if I grab the wrong thing, so I'm not going to do that. I'm going to come over here on the left side and choose my extrusion. Then I'm going to choose my rotation axis, and you can choose any circle. Doesn't matter which one, you can choose any circle. I'm going to choose the center one. And it creates that pattern going around. When we look, there are 6 little windows. The default is 6. I'm going to say OK, and it created 6 little windows for me. Okay, the last piece that I need to put on here is this extrusion that's going to be attached to the linkage arm. It's going to allow the wheels to be attached to the linkage arm. And so there's going to be a little extrusion coming off of here. To do that, I'm going to start a new sketch. It's going to be on the same surface we were putting those little windows on. And it's going to go half underneath the raised part of the wheel here. To do that, this is really confusing. I don't want to sit here and try to fight with it. So I'm going to hit F7 again. That way it cuts it in half for me. I know it's just less for me to worry about. I'm going to choose my circle tool, and it's going to go right in this area here. So I'm going to make sure that my Y is equal to 0, and the X could be anywhere because we're going to dimension it. So I'm going to click, and I'm going to put my my diameter. And my diameter for that circle is 0.25. And so there's the circle. Now I have to do is dimension. But before I dimension, I need to have that center point because there's no real center point here. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to project geometry. And I'm going to project and click on that circle. And it creates that circle in yellow for me so that I can actually see it. So now when I come back and dimension, I can dimension from the center of that circle to that dot, to the center of the main hub, bring it down, and then that distance is going to be 0.7. So now I have that circle, and it's right on the y-axis, or the y is 0 on the x-axis, and the distance out is going to be 0.7. I'm going to finish my sketch, and you can see it's half on, half off, and I'm going to extrude. I'm going to extrude that circle, and it's going to come out, and the dimension is 0.375. So I'm going to say 0.375. Okay, now I need to make another, well, there's 2 more extrusions coming off of here. So I'm going to do a sketch on this surface, and then I'm going to take a circle, and I'm going to put it in the center of that. Green is good. I'm going to take this diameter, and it's going to be 0.125. Finish my sketch, extrude it, and this one comes out 0.125. And the last one is extrusion that goes in. And I don't want to sit here and fight with it, so I'm going to make a hole this time. Don't want it to be linear. I want it to be concentric. I'm going to choose my plane. The plane is going to be this top little surface. I'm going to choose my, don't want to change the size first so that it actually looks like what it's going to be. And that is going to be 0.0625, little bitty tiny hole. Now I want to choose my concentric reference, and it puts it right in the center there for me. I don't want it to go all the way through. It actually goes a distance, and that distance is 0.25. And there you have it. The last thing we need to do is put some color on it. So I'll choose my color wheel, and I think this time I'm going to go with a little bit of purple. going to put it on my revolution here. I'm not liking that. You know what? I think this time I'm going to put some shape to it, because there's lots of different choices for you there. Oh, that's not bad. Water effect. Make sure I choose my extrusions. And if I choose everything on the left side here, then it fills it all in for me. Can make it a little bit lighter, a little bit darker. It's black wheels. I don't want it to be completely black. A little bit of a blue tinge. There we go. I think that looks pretty good. Make sure you save it in the right spot.